Terrific. Then we are going to move to our case presentation. And today's case is coming from Maine, from Josephine Ciernone. And she is from the Eastern Area Agency on Aging. And just as a quick reminder to all of our participants that after Josephine shares the case, we will go to our spoke communities first for any clarifying questions, not recommendations, then to our faculty, and then back to our spokes for recommendations, and then back to our faculty. So Josephine, take it away.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. All right.
Yes.
So I'm Josephine, as Jen just said. I'm presenting a case on a 87-year-old gentleman who is married, lives with his spouse, and they have a daughter who lives nearby. This gentleman was in our caregiver respite program at our agency. All the area agencies on aging in Maine get respite funding from the state, and he was in our program. His wife used the respite funds so that she could go to medical appointments, run errands, go grocery shopping, and meet up with friends and have lunch or go to a support group. She used the time for herself. She was very good and I guess vigilant about self-care. So it turned out that he ended up having an assessment, a functional assessment through Maximus, and found eligible for a Maine Care funded program. He was eligible for a medical model adult day program, but unfortunately in this area there are none. So when that happened, his wife was no longer able to use her respite time. And so it became really difficult for her, obviously, without respite. Her kids, like I said, her daughter lives close by. She is of the mindset that she doesn't want to bother her children. She doesn't want to rely on them. She's very concerned about them taking off time from work to give her a break. So they do help, but not when necessarily she needs it for medical appointments or if she wants to go to a support group. It's usually on a weekend. This gentleman is known to law enforcement. He did wander from his home. She was in the restroom. When she got out of the restroom, he was gone. And she couldn't find him, and he was missing for 3 hours. Local authorities did find him. Right now, he is not staffed. I did check with her just yesterday to get an update. They did receive staffing for like 2 weeks, and then the caregiver was having transportation problems. So now they're still looking for someone to come in to provide services. He was eligible to have 14 hours a week plus respite, and that's not being provided. Current problem in our area, probably about 5 years or more. We did have, I would say, a medical model when Westgate was providing services. That's a local residential and nursing home in the area. The lack of the day program is a big issue in our community. We do have a social model, but not a medical model. The social model does help, so it's only open a few days a week. Other impacts is for this particular caregiver and many others, they don't have that self-care anymore. This particular caregiver told me yesterday that she has them on 3 or 4 different waiting lists at facilities, and that's going to be her next step. She cannot continue to take care of him. Her own health and his safety are at risk at this point. And that's what happens when there's not a structured program that he can go to. So that's huge. Does it happen often? Yeah, I encounter that a lot with the caregivers that I deal with. Has this ever been addressed before, or efforts to address the issue? Yeah, there was a program in Bucksport, again, a social day program, probably early 2000. maybe 2001, 2002, somewhere around there, that had to close due to low participation and lack of funding and reimbursement. And I know that there were several meetings, because I was involved in them, in the community to address the issue to see if they could save the program. And unfortunately, they closed their doors. What's worked? The social day model does work if the care receiver and caregiver can afford it, and if they have consistent volunteers, and if the participant, meaning the person with dementia or anyone who wants to go to the program, meets the criteria for the program. What hasn't worked is they can't always afford it. Unfortunately, they don't meet the, they have fixed incomes and they can't afford it, and they don't meet the eligibility criteria for our state-funded program. And that criteria, for folks who don't know, is the person has to have dementia. If they're married, less than $75,000 in liquid assets, can't be receiving any other state or federal funded programs, so state or Maine care funded programs, and they have to be independent with their activities of daily living, because if they're not, then there's another model that might be more appropriate through the state, and that's the home-based care program. So if they don't meet this model, then they're not going to be able to access our respite program to pay for it. And then if they receive Maine care funded services and are authorized services like this gentleman in the medical day model, it wouldn't work for him because we don't have one in our area. So what would help? Obviously, more medical models. If we can get a program in our area, I think that would help. And maybe extending some of the time for the social day program, and maybe more funding available, grants available for folks who can pay other than our respite program. And why do I find, why is this taking, so what was the question? What's standing in the way of taking these steps? I think it's lack of funding and an interested organization that has the resources to provide this service. It would be good if one of the memory care facilities in the area, like Westgate, could do this. Unfortunately, I think they closed because reimbursement was not enough and they couldn't cover the cost of the program. So I'm done.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And I, understanding that we on this call can't solve reimbursement, although I'm trying, by the way, issues and funding issues. I think the core question presented in this case for all of us to grapple with are how can we support care partners in meeting their own needs and the needs of the care recipient when the care recipient does not qualify for respite or day services or where these services are not available. Does that seem like a good question to start with, Josephine?
I think so, Jess.
Okay, good. So, and I will note for the record that we did already get one question from Spokes in, which was, can you tell us how much funding the AAA provides for respite care per person? So you did say what the qualifications were, but you didn't say how much the person can receive in respite care if they qualify.
So our agency does it based on need. So it's, I speak to a caregiver and they tell me they want someone to go to the adult day program twice a week. I figure out what that is and for cost-wise, and they're authorized based on that. If the person tells me they need someone on a regular basis every week and they need a decent amount of hours, we look at what that looks like. It could range, but the most right now in the state of Maine is $3,800. That could change. I know they're working on that.
That's right. And we have another question typed into the chat, which is, would more respite funding fill the gap, or is it a workforce availability issue?
I don't necessarily think it's a workforce in the social day program. It's the programming that's not available. So right now, the social day program, they have volunteers. They do have paid staff, but they have volunteers. and, you know, they can only do it a certain amount of days at this point. I mean, it could be a combination of, but mostly I think it's the lack of a medical day program in this area.
So now we're going to go to actual questions from spoken questions, and I'm going to start with anybody on the phone. Are there any spokes participants on the phone who have clarifying questions for Josephine?
Yes, this is Hildy Ahi with Pathways. My question is, she mentioned that the wife has his name on some waiting lists for a few facilities. Are they assisted living? Are they memory care communities? And also, does she have any idea in terms of when an opening might be available for her? And do they have any day programming options?
My contact with her yesterday, she did put them on memory care facility waiting list. They're residential in our state. I don't know if you're calling from Maine or not, but they're residential level care and memory care. As far as them offering any day programming, no, they don't have anything in their facilities. So basically she's waiting. As far as how and when, basically most of the facilities in our area, if they have someone in their regular residential that needs memory care, they get priority. So she could be on the list. She could be number one on the list, but if somebody internal needs a bed, that person gets it over her. And the sad part is they could have been admitted 2 weeks ago, and she could have been on that list for 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it really hard.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Maggie Lewis calling from Vermont. I have a question in regard to the Dementia Respite Grant being $3,800.
Yes.
Is that per month or annually?
Annually. Boy, I wish it was per month.
Yeah, I was really impressed at first.
Yeah, no, it's annually. It's not that. But they're looking at changing it, so we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
So other questions from the spokes? Just we can go now to the folks who are online. Don't all speak at once.
Yeah.
Are we going to faculty? Is that where when you're saying online?
Well, we were going to start with the spokes, but if we don't have any other questions from the spokes, we can move to the faculty.
Hi, I had a question. Tamara Herrick.
Go ahead.
Maybe you said this. Are they members of a church or some kind of faith community?
No, well, I'll tell you, they moved from southern part of the state to be closer to their daughter. So I don't believe they had a church that they had participated in for a while. Back home, I'm not sure where they were from, if they did, but I don't think so here. But the actual program is out of a church. The day program that he was going to is out of the Methodist Church in Bangor.
Are there clarifying questions for Josephine?
I have a question. This is Catlin. Hi, Josephine.
Hi, Catlin.
Just wondering, the social model you mentioned, and you were saying that it was successful in this particular case. I'm just curious because social models generally are not secure facilities. Like the church isn't a secure facility, and that really works for someone who has a a likelihood of wandering.
Yeah, and actually yesterday I found out that there was a gentleman who did wander off, and someone in the community who recognized him found him and brought him back to the facility. So it does happen.
Yeah, hence the need for a medical model.
Hence the need for a medical model.
And this is Jess, and just because you guys are having this conversation, I thought it might be interesting to ask the question, what's the difference between a social and medical model?
Social model is basically supervision and social activities and programming. My understanding of a medical model is that they can provide medication monitoring. I know some of them even have nurses on staff who, you know, can do vitals. You know, they may be able to do showers, personal care. I know that that's some of the components of a medical model that really work, especially for someone who struggles with giving someone, they might be a small person and their spouse might be bigger. It might be harder for them to get them bathed. And a lot of times folks with dementia do better with someone else providing that level of care than their own spouse. So the medical model works in that way. They also, I believe, do provide meals, where the social model, I think they have one meal that they bring, and then one that's served for like $4 or $5. So, and if anybody's on the line that is in a medical model and want to, you know, also share what I might have missed, that would be great.
That's correct. The facility needs to be secure.
Right.
The staff need to be certified to pass medications. There needs to be an RN and a social worker, and the provision of meals as well as snacks.
I almost hit them all.
Yep, you did.
Josephine, another question's come in from Ken Gordon. Is the patient a veteran?
He is not, so he cannot access the veteran home in Bangor.
And we have another question from the Gibson Center for Senior Services that I'm a little bit unclear about, but I think they are asking, can someone who's receiving respite care services that is not a main care provider be paid from the respite services? I think I'm getting that question right.
So can a person, and let me just rephrase that, can a person be paid that's not part of?
So a person who's receiving the respite services, can they use that for a non-main care provider?
Yes, the person on our respite program, they could use it for family, friend, anyone. They, you know, if they're eligible for the program, it could be a day program. It could be they have an agency come in. Could be a sibling, you know, who, you know, maybe there's 5 kids and one kid wants to do it, but they can't not work, so they can get paid to take care of their parent if they had to, or a neighbor or whoever. They don't have to have credentials to be a caregiver on our respite program through the state.
Anne Marie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know that the client has been not wanting to rely on the family, but have we been able to reach out to the family at all to explore what options might be available with them, even if it's just short term?
You know, quite honestly, I would love to see the family involved. You know, a lot of it's cultural. She's from another country, so they think of things a little differently than we do here in our US of A. So she's not really interested in me reaching out to the family to talk about the options.
Cliff has asked the question, is Blue Hill too far away?
Yeah, it is. And again, this family's from another part of the state, so had they stayed there, they would have had access to medical day programming. So those two, there's Friendship Cottage, and then there's actually one in Ellsworth that's in operation daily. That one I believe is I'm not sure if that's, I think that's a social model. I'm not positive, but again, too far.
Ruby, I see your comment. It's wandering into a recommendation, so I'm going to hold off on that. Other clarifying questions?
It's Mary Val. You mentioned they're from another culture. Are there other people in the area from similar culture that could be tapped into?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not, it's her mindset that isn't going to get changed, you know?
Her mindset to...
That she doesn't want to burden her family.
Okay, but...
Yeah, we've talked, I've had numerous conversations about it with her.
Okay, someone other than family from the same culture?
Yeah, no, she doesn't, there's none that she would feel comfortable. She doesn't know any in this area. I don't know any in this area, so.
What's the culture?
To be honest with you, I think it's, she has a beautiful accent. I can't remember now. It's like maybe Norwegian? Something like that. And I have to be careful because I have to de-identify this person. There might be somebody on here that might know that.
Can I have a follow-up question? Has she been engaged in any support groups?
Yes, she's been to mine. Unfortunately, she's really sad that she can't come. So I call her on a regular basis just to check in with her. Yeah. She was coming because we had a group that he could come to the group, but he is high acuity needs, hence needing a medical model, and could not be managed so that she could attend the support group. So she had to give it up. We tried.
Is she online, or is does she have access to or is she comfortable using technology?
A little, not much. I mean, if I email her, she'll email me and then she'll say, "Can you call me?" And I call her, you know.
So we have several questions coming in from the chat. One is, are there any age-friendly communities or villages or lifelong communities in the area, in her area, that would serve her?
No, not that I know of. I mean, there might be 55 and up, but she's on a very fixed income and barely can afford her present living arrangements.
A lot of the age-friendly community work is completely free, so.
Well, yeah, but I thought you meant that could she move to one?
No, I'm asking if there are any volunteer lifelong community initiatives, age-friendly community initiatives, and actually Catlin Blackstone is asking that.
Oh, you know, honestly, that would be something for me I would need to find out. I know one of the things that has recently happened is that some of the caregivers that do come to my support group have been helping each other. They're kind of like bartering, you know, you take care of my spouse for an hour, and then next week I'll take care of your spouse for an hour. So that might be something, if they could manage this gentleman, she could participate in.
Bangor is an age-friendly community, and there may be something along that line. So actually,
that would be great to
Diane Walsh would know, Josephine.
I'll talk to Diane about that because I haven't heard of anyone who could do it in this area.
I'm not sure, but worth asking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll ask.
There's another question along a similar line, but a little bit different. Are there any friendly visitor volunteer programs in the area?
There are. It would depend on the individual whether or not they can provide that service. I think this gentleman, and we're talking about this case in particular, would not benefit from that.
Another
They could
question.
not manage him.
I see. What are the behaviors that would be unmanageable?
The behaviors that are unmanageable, he's a huge wandering risk. He won't stay for anyone. He gets very anxious. He can become a little bit on the combative side. He's incontinent. A lot of senior volunteers don't want to have to face that.
There is another question. Will she qualify for long-term care, according to Maximus?
Yes, and he has been assessed and eligible for facility placement. She's just waiting for the bed.
Does she have
So
Does she have high-speed internet?
Yes, she does. She's computer literate. She's just not very savvy on the computer. So she gets resistant. She's hesitant to use it.
Are there any senior exercise programs locally?
Yeah, our wellness programs. We do have wellness programs, and the community that she lives in has adult day senior programs as well. So like not adult day meaning a social program, but during the day they have wellness programs for seniors in the town that she lives in.
Are there any language barriers, or is it only cultural?
No. She has a beautiful accent. I understand everything she says.
Any other questions? I guess the last question I will ask is, have you or has she taken any steps to address his wandering?
Yes, he's on the wandering program, which the Penobscot County Sheriff's Office has. She's done some alarms in her home. Yes, they have webcams. They've done quite a few things.
And do they have? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, he has identifying information on him so that if he does wander, he can be hopefully redirected to where he needs to go.
And do they have, or have they been able to establish any new friends in the area?
I think she has one friend that she met years ago, and they talk to each other. Sometimes if she can get out, she'll meet with her. Unfortunately, without having that respite, that was the one friend she would meet up with. And her friend is on the respite program, so she could use it. But unfortunately, this lady can't now.
Okay, I think we are now going to move to recommendations. And as a reminder, first, the question presented again is, how can we support care partners in meeting their own needs and the needs of the care recipient when the care recipient does not qualify for respite or day services, or where these services are not available? And I would, I guess, also say, and where the care partner may be resistant to enlisting the help of family. And then we're going to turn it over to our spokes partners first for making recommendations, and then we'll go to faculty. And we'll again start with people on the phone.
This is Hildy Ahi with Pathways. One recommendation that I have is, if he is still pretty high functioning, sometimes the wandering is happening because of boredom and really not a lot of things happening during the day for him. So I'm wondering if maybe somebody can work with he and his wife to maybe come up with a good routine with more purposeful, kind of meaningful activities for him to be engaging in while he's at home, to keep him from actually wanting to leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other folks on the phone who have recommendations? All right, moving to our spokes who are online, on video, I guess I would say. If you've got recommendations, and I will actually go back to, by the way, 2 recommendations that already did come in. One, and Ruth, Ruby, are you able to just speak?
Yeah,
right,
I can speak.
Great.
Sure. I was just wondering if there was the potential for a team meeting here. Either it sounds like the woman herself is resistant to bringing her family in, but if there could be ways to phrase that team meeting that it's not about setting up you know, a care routine, but simply about doing an assessment of his situation, and then she might be more open to a team meeting that includes herself and other family members, but also a team meeting that would include other service providers and services to think about how to respond to difficult behaviors, but also how to create a more interesting day, more activity, or opportune group activities, and where the wife could be less on task to be caring for him in every single moment of the day.
Terrific. Pathways through aging. Are you able to, you had also made a recommendation around hilarity for charity, which I've never heard about. Are you able to tell us about that?
I was just thinking about hilarity for charity. I mean, the process takes a little bit of time, so it may not.
Can you get closer to the mic so we can hear you?
I was just thinking about Hilarity for Charity. It's a program that was started by some movie star, Seth Rogen, and his wife. And it basically partner with Home Instead, which provides private in-home care. And there's an application, I think, online, and you pretty much have to tell the story of why you need this help. And I think it's even up to 40 hours a week in home, maybe for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It's kind of a significant amount of time. And I don't know how long the process would actually take. It may take a couple of months, so it may not be appropriate for this particular case if they feel like there's placement coming around the corner. But it may be if there's a longer period of time, and just a good resource for people to think about. There's a Home Instead in that services their area.
Other recommendations from spokes?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, we've been trying to connect here.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yes. So I'm wondering how a typical day looks for him. And someone else talked about keeping him engaged in things that are either things he did before his dementia or things that interest him. And also primarily, you know, he's a guy that wants to move around. So I'm wondering about somebody helping her get him out and moving. Some sort of exercise, or someone that could come walk with him. So that's my recommendation.
Other spokes groups, recommendations. All right. Well, let's move on to faculty recommendations. I'll let you all speak up first, but may end up calling on some of you if you've got some ideas.
That's, what is it though? Is it mute? Hello?
There you go, Town of Wilmington.
Yes.
Yay. Wow. I have a question or maybe a suggestion. Do you know if he has any like musical interests, or did he ever play an instrument? Maybe you could get somebody in there once a week to give him a music lesson.
Do you want me to respond?
If you'd like.
Okay, I didn't know if I was supposed to respond. So the program that we have where we have a support group and then the care recipient can be in another group with other care recipients, we had a music therapist providing services for 50 minutes. He did not want any part of it.
She didn't, but maybe he did.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, other recommendations?
Hi, so this is Allegra, and I am a caregiver for my husband. So I can tell you, I don't know if you have something the way I was so wonderfully able to access the CARES program in Vermont, but I think even more if you don't have something like that, any way that you could get her to even talk to somebody else who's a caregiver for their spouse, very different than being a caregiver for your parent. Having done both, I can tell you they're very different. And if she can't get out, like even just having that one person to email or to talk or just say, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened today. Someone else who can relate to that, or gee, you know, this is a great thing that happened, whichever way it goes. I think that's really critical and will still be critical even if her husband is placed somewhere else. I mean, because there's a whole other level, I think, of guilt and emotions that come up after that. So if there's some way, I know there's a lot of confidentiality issues, but I don't know how that, if there's some way that could get worked out so at least she has someone else going through the same things she could talk with. And I'm really want to echo about the productive activities. You know, my husband gets to rummaging and gets anxious and manic and I don't know what all that's going on with him. And I just give him a broom and he sweeps. And I just say how grateful it is that I'm so happy you're doing such a good job sweeping, or he's cleaning the bathroom countertops, or getting the cobwebs out. I mean, it's things like that he really feels, okay, I'm doing something. I'm sorry he wouldn't do anything with music. I play the piano and I've come up with a way for my husband to play with me. Just a numerical, I tell him to play the number 5 while I'm playing. I don't know. It's just, there are other ways that you can kind of make that work. And that's another way for him to feel productive. Yeah. Just a few ideas. And I've got some other game type things I've kind of created and I'll put that in on the chat.
That's terrific. Thanks. Thanks, Allegra. Cinda, do you have any recommendations?
Well, I was thinking about I thought I heard somebody say that he was pretty anxious, and I was thinking about trying to figure out how to help him manage that, like environmentally or somehow. But really it sounds like her real issue is she needs to be able to find ways to get to appointments. And, the only way to do that is to recruit people. And it sounds like she's very reluctant to ask for help. So it sounds like somebody else is going to have to do the asking. I don't know if they could approach like churches or someplace to try and see if anybody would be interested in volunteering to do that. But I would try to recruit volunteers to help her get to these appointments that she needs to go to. And if she's not willing to recruit because she's hesitant to ask for help, then maybe somebody could do it for her.
I have a clarifying question, I think, because we couldn't unmute ourselves before. The question we asked before was,
about services and that he's on a wait list. But my question, I guess, is she eligible for HCBC services in her home?
Yeah. Can I answer that question now?
Yes.
Yeah, she is eligible for services in the home. They just don't have any staffing in the area that she lives in. So that's been the hardest part. She got someone for 2 weeks, and the person wasn't really a good fit to begin with, so she didn't really feel comfortable leaving the house, but she did get time. The big issue is her getting respite. When she's with them, he's totally engaged. He's busy, stuff like that. She went to the bathroom when he wandered. I mean, it wasn't something that she could avoid. So it's not like she's not doing anything with them. They go day trips. She goes out to eat with him. They go to the library. You know, they are busy, but I just feel like this poor woman needs a break.
Thank you. Cliff.
Well, just thinking about safety issues first and how dangerous wintertime wandering is. I wanted to make sure that there was a cognitive lock on the door so that he can't get outside, but she could operate the lock in an emergency. And make sure that he has a GPS bracelet if he would wear it. Also, if they were going to stay in the home longer, I know he's on a wait list for facilities, but fencing so that he could, when the weather allows, he could at least get outside. My fourth recommendation would be, doesn't provide respite, but at least take him to the Y if there's one in her area. They have a dementia-friendly, they're starting a dementia-friendly exercise program. It would help both of them, and I know he's active, they get out, but if he was actually doing something more physically engaging, that might tire him out a little bit, to be less restless and anxious later in the day. Finally, the University of Maine has some volunteers that might be willing to engage him in social activities. They're not caregivers, formally trained caregivers, but if you have a good personality match, that can sometimes work. And that's what I got.
Terrific. Thanks, Cliff. How about Catlin?
Yeah, I'd say these are all great ideas, and this is following up on what Cinda said about volunteers. And I would maybe take it a step further and take stock of who's currently involved with this caregiver and the care receiver, and get them all together even for a brief meeting, so the police, any friends, check out the age-friendly possibilities, any home providers, doctors, other providers, churches, and sit down and get a schedule together and see if you can get anybody to commit to blocks of time, even if it's just an hour throughout the week. Check in with each other. What are you doing? What am I doing? What do I need? And just see if you can get cobble together some kind of plan while all these other things are being addressed, like I agree with Cliff about the safety measures. This is a tough one.
How about Mary Val?
Well, I am still a little bit unclear about her goals, because it seems like she said a lot of, you said a lot of, she wouldn't do that, she wouldn't do that. And often if I'm talking to a spouse, I say, well, what's your goal here? Is her goal to get him into a facility as fast as possible? Is her goal to keep him at home for as long as possible? Just, had those facilities kind of on a radar, and then kind of negotiate with her well, I made a suggestion about, home sharing or something like that. How serious are you about your goal that you might be able to explore that? So a little bit of more of a negotiation. And then I know that you probably don't have this information, but I'd be curious about his medications. Is he on an antidepressant? Is he, frustrated? Those kind of things sometimes make people more antsy to wander. And if he's not, and it wasn't contraindicated, I might think about could there be a medication adjustment? I'm not a big fan of anti-anxiety medications, but I will use something like sertraline or trazodone or something like that. And then sleep issues. Sometimes sleep issues are the straw that breaks the camel's back with a woman like this. And so I don't know, I hope that was helpful. Seems like a hard case.
Very.
Before I call in other faculty, are there other faculty who want to speak up?
Hi, Jess. I just had a couple of things. I agree with everybody so far. One is around, I was thinking about his agitation. It seems to cause her a bit of distress, quite a bit of distress. And I don't think anyone's doing music in memory up there in the home, but Catlin could really speak to this more than I can, but maybe creating, I know he didn't enjoy the group music thing, but maybe he might be receptive, if he likes music in general, might be receptive to creating an individualized playlist that he can use when he's feeling that way to help ameliorate some of those symptoms. And then the other thing was related to, there's an online caregiver support group that's going to be recruiting in our area for rural dementia caregivers based on the VA Building Better Caregivers model. So I can share that with the group once that goes live too. That might be something she might be interested in if she has high-speed internet access and is computer literate.
That's terrific.
I have another idea. Maybe they could advertise on Craigslist for somebody to come in and provide respite, or someplace like that.
Oh.
I'll just, this is Laura.
Go ahead.
Just thinking about one of the issues somebody brought up was that, getting out to appointments. So it seems like while she is not accepting respite, that maybe, or ideas around respite, right? Family and other areas. If, I don't know, maybe calling ahead to her medical appointments to say, I'm coming, but my husband's coming too, so that they're aware, and at least she can get there and take him, bring him along, but making the medical team aware that that's going to be part of the appointment too. Mm-hmm. And I really liked what Mary Val said, around that, focusing on her goals, and trying to, maneuver along that way, so that she can see, and it's okay. You can be your own barrier, right? And that's okay. Because we all are in some ways, but to make that awareness, and then maybe it'll be either bring her some more comfort that, okay, I am, it's okay, or allow her to move forward with some other decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Ellen Flaherty, do you have any recommendations? Are you muted? Oh, she may have stepped away from the phone. Melissa Grenier? Melissa? Maybe she did too. All right. Other last thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The Y, the dementia-friendly programming at the Y, you have to be a member of the Y to participate in that? Does anybody know? Did Cliff hear me?
Cliff?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
Okay, because that would be affordability for her. She couldn't afford that.
If she can't afford that, I'm sure that they can accommodate her. Diane Dickerson is the person to ask, but they're trying to make it a real community resource.
Okay, well, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I think that might be good for her.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hi, this is
Go ahead.
Maggie in Vermont. Hello?
Yes.
Hi, I'm thinking, is there telemedicine an option for her?
It could be if she knew how to use, I mean, is it computer that you're talking about, telemedicine via computer, or do they have audio equipment that's separate from a computer?
I'm talking about whatever is available in her area. If she's not able to get to a doctor's appointment,
right? Yeah.
Are the clinics set up to do telemedicine? Yeah.
I think she's tried to go in with him to the appointment, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to stay for the whole appointment. But she's gotten there for situations where she had to.
It's a good suggestion. Unfortunately, Medicare doesn't reimburse telemedicine in Cumberland and Penobscot counties.
Oh, geez.
What the heck?
Under the absurd notion that there's enough medical providers that people should be able to get to one. But of course, we all know that's ridiculous.
Not true, right.
Wow.
I hear that.
That stinks.
It does stink. All right. Well, this has been terrific, but it's time for us to have our summary now. So, Patricia,
thank you, everyone.
Patricia, I'm going to have you summarize the recommendations that were made.
Hello. Yeah. So the recommendations, sorry about my voice.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So
wow.
Come up with a good route. It's all Jess's fault. Come up, I'm kidding. Okay. Come up with a good routine with more purposeful, meaningful activities to engage in while he's home. And then that was from the phone. And from participants we had, is there potential for a team meeting? Also the suggestion of hilarity for charity and volunteers or paid help to get him out of the house and moving. From faculty, we heard provide a way to find caregiver support for her, for example, by mail or phone. We also heard about a new online support group that's forming. Recruit volunteers to help her get to the appointments, even if someone has to do that for her. Take stock of who's currently involved to develop a schedule that'll give her respite. Make sure that combination lock on the door to prevent him from getting outside, GPS bracelet, fencing around the house so we can walk outside, visit the Y, tap into humane volunteers who may fill the role of friendly visitors, identify her goals and build on those, assess medication and sleep issues, creating an individualized playlist, advertising on Craigslist, making the medical team aware that care recipient will need to attend appointments with her, and training for local medical offices to make dementia-friendly waiting rooms or spaces where people can let the spouse wait while they go to an appointment.
Again, as is always the case, and Jonathan, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I saw your lips moving, but you were muted. That's all.
Oh, okay, great. Well, you know, I try to go back and forth. So thank you all for your participation today. As a reminder, our next session is on February 27th. And our didactic presentations from Catlin and Tamara and Mark and Ellen Thompson will be on community programming for people with dementia and their care partners, and we'll make sure that we're covering those things for all 3 states. And as is always the case, if you've got additional questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat, quickly, or you can let Jonathan or I know, and we'll make sure that we get them for you. So that's all we have for today, although I think I'm turning things back over to Qualidime for an announcement. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. Thanks, Jess. This is Lise Tancreed. Just wanted to share a little bit of news. Qualidine's done a little bit of restructuring of the organization, and sadly, Jonathan and I will be transitioning out. However, Annie will be staying, and she's been providing some support to you, and I wanted to introduce two new team members that will be supporting this project. Kelly Slate-Vickavage and Danielle Ziller, and they'll be covering the roles that that I cover, supporting the faculty and some of the conveners. And Annie will take on a bigger role in supporting the technical aspects. So in the future, Jonathan and I, our last day on the project will be February 4th. So after that, you can communicate with Annie and or Kelly and Danielle. But I just wanted to, and of course Jess will still be facilitating. And I just wanted to just thank the cohort. It's been a pleasure working with all of you, and just the amazing work that that you've all pulled together really has been very rich, and it will continue, and appreciate all of your participation. And Jonathan, and I don't know if you wanted to say a few words.
I think you did an amazing job, Lisa.
Oh, stop it. Well, we'll miss you all, but you're in good hands. I just want to assure you.
And just so you know, I've been with this project since the beginning, so I may have been off camera, but I've been with you guys and been a part of it, so it'll be an easy transition. We're looking forward to all joining the team together.
Well, I just want to say thanks to Lisa and Jonathan, who've been really terrific in the creation of this ECHO-D project and in helping us to get it off the ground and running. So we really appreciate it, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. So thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
And thank you all today, and we will be back in touch with you by email with both recordings of the didactic and the case presentation recommendations, reminding you of your next session. We will be in touch directly with the community that will be doing the case presentation, as well as the folks that are doing the didactic. So thank you very much. And if faculty can hang on the line, spokes can go ahead and sign off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Wilson is one. Who? Lori Wilson.
Good. So that's all. Any thoughts about today? Questions? How we can make things go better?
You do a really good job, Jess.
Thank you.
Thanks for making it smooth. But I'm heartsick about Lisa and Jonathan. I hope are you guys staying where you are, or what?
Well, I'm actually taking an early retirement.
Whoa.
And, yeah.
Yeah, she's happy.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about retirement too. Why wait until I'm older? Do it now.
I think you should follow the Lisa Letourneau model and take a year off.
Gap year. A gap year, yeah.
No, I'm just gonna hang out and spend time with my kids, I guess. Which I know sounds awful, and it is.
It's not. So Thanks for asking, Cliff. Other thoughts or questions about how today went, Mary Val?
Yeah, I loved the presentation on driving, and that was a little bit of a disconnect to not have a case on driving. So I don't know if you can have any control over the way the cases come in.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I think I certainly experienced that with the other ECHO project as well, that because the teams are responsible for the cases and they don't, really tell us what their case is going to be in advance, there's not a good way to match them up. But it's definitely something that would be better if we could figure it out.
Oh, but we know our topics in advance. So is there a way you can say, these are the topics in advance, volunteer to present your case if you have a matching
I would
case to our
say,
topic?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I mean, it's difficult because I know, historically with the ECHO sessions, getting cases has always been a really big hurdle. And so we've always tried to limit those hurdles for getting cases. So I know in the past, at least with ECHO programs, we've always said that the case does not have to mirror the didactics because we felt it added another level of, just like a barrier between getting cases and getting people to actually come forward and presenting them. So while it's it would be an awesome thing, I think it may be difficult because we I think maybe this would be a little bit easier because I think probably a lot of people have something about driving a case that seems like it's probably pretty common, but yeah, in the past it's been difficult, and we felt like if we sent out, hey, does anybody have a case for this very specific issue, we may not get any, where we've struggled in the past to get cases.
Yeah. And the other important piece about the ECHO model is case presenters are facing a current urgent situation, and those don't always align, with the didactic presentation. So on one aspect, we could put it out there as, this is the topic that we're going to be looking at. But again, that would tie the hands of the presenter because all of our cases are scheduled for the remainder of the session. So each of the convener groups have a month that they're going to be presenting. And currently, they've already been thinking about some of their cases. So I know that for February and March, they have an idea of the case that they want to present that they've been struggling with within their community. So while it would be ideal to have them align, we really want to be able to respond to that urgent situation that they're dealing with. I hope that makes sense, Mary Val.
But I wonder if there's a way to, even if you're not tying it directly, just to put a bug out there and say, hey, as we're looking at the year, these are some of the topics. And while you're thinking about the cases you're going to present, do the ones that are most pressing. But at the same time, if you have something that'll fit into one of the topics, let us know. Not tying it, but just, I do that. I've got a class right now that I'm teaching with current events. And I told them, do whatever's going to come up, but keep in mind this week, this is what we're covering. So if you're presenting that week, I wouldn't mind if you tied it in, but you're not tied to that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Anne Marie.
Absolutely. We talked about this early on, and then the idea honestly got lost. It's because it isn't part of the traditional ECHO model. But I think